What did the board make of Michael Cheika's presentation, and what outcomes have come out of that meeting?
Yeah, well, Michael comes into the board, a couple of times a year, and he always comes in October because it's the logical time after the end of the domestic season before the spring tour. So it's a pretty routine from that perspective. But obviously there was a bit of focus today because we've got a World Cup coming up. So we just wanted to talk through with him, what support does he need from us? What are the sort of resources? What we don't want to have is we've left anything on the table that leaves the Wallabies in a position not to win the World Cup. So it was just a really, really good and open discussion around, how did he feel about this year? What do you think went well? Where were the opportunities for improvement? How do we learn from that? What's he need from us to put the Wallabies in the absolute best position to win the World Cup next year?
And what were his key points?
Oh, look, I go through, it's up to him to sort of articulate that. I don't want to sort of, get into the specifics. He can sort of take you through that. But it's really just saying, reviewing, I guess, the season and what he thinks is the sort of things he needs. And our job as a board is to, get right behind him and make sure we're delivering the sort of resources he needs to get ready for next year.
Given his recent results and his results over the last sort of 3 years, why is the board backing him?
Oh, look, we think he's the right person to coach. I think there's, what we see in the results, and obviously we have a high degree of empathy with fans who say there's been inconsistency. But I think if you look at it, there have been some extraordinary performances. Clearly been performances of the players, and Michael have been very open about that they haven't delivered what they'd hoped to deliver. But there's been some extraordinary performances, and we think that that shows us potential there, and that he's the right person to take us through and win us the World Cup.
Talk about support and resources. What kind of support and resources do you think you might be bringing in or adding?
Oh, it's an ongoing discussion. I think that we need to just continually work and say, well, how's he see things go? How's the spring tour go? How things go? But it's really up to him. At the end of the day, it's his job to coach the team. It's our job to make sure we're providing the sort of resources and support he might need.
So he's 100% saying to take the team right through the World Cup.
Oh, we're supporting him, absolutely. We're not. You have to be unequivocal. You don't. That's the way we've been quite consistent. We're supporting him, absolutely. Yeah.
So, could there be any other sort of personnel changes? There's been talk about bringing in someone like a George Green or someone like that.
Oh, again, that's open to Michael, and I guess that's a good example. We want to, if he talks and look, this will be an evolutionary process. He's going to obviously evolve his playing squad as he goes in next year, and he looks at form and other things. If he wants to do those sort of things, then we'll be right behind him and supporting him and trying to make them happen. Sorry, you were going to...
I was just going to ask again about the assistants. Was there any talk about their roles?
Oh, that's entirely up to Michael. The reality is we support him, and and we support the structure he's put in place. But I think you've got to allow your coach to pick the team that he needs to support him, and he's obviously indicated that he's very comfortable with his coaching structure, and we back him with that.
Did the board put him through his paces? Did the board ask questions of him and challenge him on anything at all?
Oh, we're always, as I said, this is a regular occurrence. It's nothing particularly special. It's something we do many times a year, and we always do it in October. So the reality is that the most important thing is the board and the coach and the CEO, they're all aligned, and that's what we're really talking about. Actually, it's not a question of putting it through paces, just saying we are aligned top to bottom. They're all working towards the same goal, which is obviously a successful spring tour followed by us winning the World Cup next year.
Did that second half in Argentina change anything in any way? And there was a lot of speculation beforehand that one more loss and his job might be in jeopardy.
Well, that's obviously people speculate. That certainly wasn't the board's view. The board's view is that clearly we were obviously delighted to see that record comeback in Argentina, but I think that's a good example. This team has got extraordinary potential. You see that. And we have a very tough rugby championship because we're playing against some of the best teams you'll ever play against. So I think we've seen some really great performances from this team. We had an extraordinary World Cup in 2015. The potential's there, and that's why we think this is the right team and the right coach to take us through there.
From grassroots to top tier, are you happy with the state of Australian rugby?
Oh, look, I think in many respects, the sentiment around Australian rugby is very much driven by how the Wallabies perform. That does have an impact, particularly this time of year when that's the main amount of rugby going on. But we've been looking. Participation is up right across the board in many respects. We've got some really exciting sort of initiatives going with regard to some our live bid for the 2021 Women's World Cup are still contemplating very strongly a bid for the 2027 Men's World Cup. We've got stadium redevelopments. We've got a range of some of our iconic players re-signing and committing. We've got some of our foreign talent wanting to come back and play in Australia. So there's actually a lot of positives. But the sentiment around the game, is often dictated by the performance of the Wallabies, and that's something that Michael and the team feel very acutely. So we obviously want to make sure that we're putting in place the right support so that they've got the best opportunity to win.
What about grassroots? Rugby Australia and grassroots?
Well, I mean that's always an interesting thing. I mean, I think the reality is that more than half the board have come out of grassroots, and in fact more than half the board have been on grassroots committees, and including myself. I mean, we've been involved in rugby, and we're very active in that community. I mean, I think the reality is, I've said it quite clearly, does Australian rugby spend enough money on grassroots? No. Nor do we spend enough money on coaching, on development, or the Wallabies. We don't. We underspend in every single area because we're financially challenged. So our goal has consistently been to try and get more money into the game so we can actually spend at every level, because we're underspending in every category, not just grassroots.